Today's gospel is quite harsh. It might seem to be addressed to the chief priests and the scribes and the Pharisees, and indeed it is. But St Matthew would not have included this parable if it wasn't also directed to us. And no matter how we try to angle it, it is a bit of a telling off. In the gospel, the landowner represents God the Father. The vineyard represents the world that we've been given. The tenants represent us. The servants, the prophets, and the Son represents Jesus Christ. If the vineyard is the world that we've been given, if the vineyard is the complex web of relationships that we're part of, if the vineyard is our families, our housemates, our neighbours, our work colleagues, our friends, our classmates, if the vineyard is our environment, if the vineyard is our sisters and brothers who throughout the world face poverty and war, then what kind of tenants are we? Do we see the world as something that's just there that we can take for granted? Do we see it as something that we can squeeze and exploit for our own advantage? Or do we see it as a gift and a responsibility that we're called to nurture and take care of? COVID has perhaps left us a little bit exposed in this regard. And what about the prophets? Our first reaction when someone comes to us with an uncomfortable or unpalatable truth is often to try to find ways to not believe them, to seek to undermine their reputation or their motivation, or even to make fun of them. Prophets are generally not saints. They're as imperfect as the rest of us. But when someone tells us a hard truth about COVID, about the environment, about inequality and racism, then perhaps we ought to listen to them. Perhaps they have a valid point to make. And what about the Son? Do we ever beat up the Son? Do we ever even reject Jesus Christ, who comes to us through other people? What about when we treat someone unfairly because of the way they talk, because of their appearance, or because of the colour of their skin? What about when we turn a blind eye when our own Home Office locks up innocent asylum seekers, or even considers, as they did last week, the possibility of packing them on converted ferries or sending them to an island in the South Atlantic? And what about when we, as I did last week, talk about someone else in a way that completely strips them of their dignity? The good news is that unlike the tenants in today's gospel, we have been given another chance. That other chance is now.